Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for registering for our event tonight. So let us give a few minutes for the other participants to join in the webinar. Thank you. All right, Desmond, you may start the session now.
Sure, Miss Ashmita. Hi, everyone. My name is Desmond Ang. I'm the founder and the managing director of Global Migration Solutions. And I have been advising families members, professionals, investor, and the business owner on the Australia and the New Zealand migration for more than 23 years. And today, I would like to share why New Zealand is becoming the most attractive study to residence programs globally. And many of you might think about studying overseas, in terms of getting a qualification. And now the New Zealand is providing the students and importantly, the family members a pathway to not just studying, but also to work and to reside eventually, a long-term future in New Zealand. Now, what makes New Zealand more interesting today is that a master degree program potentially creates a much faster pathway to secure your permanent residency as compared to many other countries, while also allowing the spouse to work during your study and your children's to be able to study at the local school or the government school as a local students. So I will walk all of you through the steps on how the whole family members can move through the journey together. Okay, let's begin. Now, just a little bit about our company profile. Global Migration Solutions stands for GMS in short. It was being incorporated in the year 2004. So we have been in this business providing the migration advisory work for the last 23 years. Today, we have offices across Asia Pacific region, and we are known for our successful records. And over the years, we have helped more than 12,000 family members successfully securing their permanent residency, especially in Australia and New Zealand. Just a little bit about myself. As one of the founder, I'm a licensed immigration advisor registered under the New Zealand and Australia Immigration Authority. Prior to that, I was trained to be a chartered accountant with Pricewaterhouse for 8 years and had a change of profession. I moved into the migration industry, got myself registered and licensed to be a licensed immigration advisor. So I specialize in not just the skill and professional programs, but also the business and the investment programs. Just a little bit of a reminder when you are getting an immigration advice, to make sure you always get this advice from a licensed advisor directly, make sure that they are highly regulated and they are bounded with the code of conduct. Now, let's look into why students are considering New Zealand nowadays, right? I guess, the key here is New Zealand is generally welcoming international students. So New Zealand as a country, they acknowledge the importance of having international students who will eventually contributing to the future needs on, the skill and the experience that are coming from, from different places. So that says and that explain, we are expecting to see the programs, or especially the migration programs, to be very friendly towards the international students. Now, there are certain indicator here. Uh, in terms of the migration programs for international students, there isn't a quota as compared to some other countries that might have imposed, how many international students could be, could comes in every year. So New Zealand, on the other hand, has a very friendly program, not only without quota, but they do also allows the students to work up to 25 hours per week. Yeah. And if you're doing a master by research, there isn't any maximum hours of, of working hours per week. And we have seen also consistently a growth in terms of the international students going, to New Zealand over the last few years. Uh, Now let's just talk about, have a quick comparisons, in terms of students who are going to Australia, UK, Singapore. We do see some of these countries have a cap. These countries set, a more stringent quota or processing on the students' visa. We have seen a drop in the number of students in terms of the number of students going into this country. We have also seen, a higher refusal rate on the students' visa. Australia, for example, to a certain extent, the governments of Australia has even, kept the age at 35 for those students who has passed 35 years old and wanting to stay back. There isn't, a straightforward programs or, the visa available if you have passed 35 years old and, completed your study in Australia, unless you meet, the some of the programs such as skill migration program that could relatively be more stringent uh, if you choose to study in Australia, for example. Likewise, UK and Singapore, we have seen, some of they have imposed some student, especially UK, for example, imposed 6% international students levy, and this kind of diverting some of the students to New Zealand. Yeah. Now, let's look into the student's visa. So, in general, when we talk about students' visa, it is designed, to facilitate a students and international students to study in a country. New Zealand, for example, do give a pathway for a family member to join you if you are studying in New Zealand. And I'm going to talk about that shortly on how, if you are going to study in New Zealand, how your spouse and your children can join you during your study. All right. Now, and something worth highlighting, after 3rd of November 2025, a students, as an international students for New Zealand, you can actually work up to 25 hours per week. Yeah. Uh, what is interesting is, how, and what visa and how can you stay back after completed your study, which I'm going to walk you through shortly. Now, another key highlight here is how your spouse, not only they're joining you, but we're going to talk about how your spouse has the work right while we are studying, how your spouse, could actually live in New Zealand while working, in New Zealand with the full work rights. We are also going to talk about how your children can study at the primary school level and secondary school level and be considered local students. Okay, now let's look into this the let's look into the post-study work visa. So this post-study work visa basically is designed to allow a graduate, yeah, or a student who has completed their study to remain in New Zealand. Now, there are certain requirements to that. First, you must complete a study in New Zealand for at least 30 weeks. Yeah. So literally, I think this 30 weeks is very is as compared to programs again, for example, a good comparisons to Australia. For an Australian graduate to access or to be entitled to a graduate visa, yeah, a student is expected for Australia is expected to complete 4 semesters or 2 years of study when if they are below 35 and they would be entitled to a graduate visa. As versus New Zealand, on the other hand, there isn't any age limit, and all you need to do is to complete your study for a minimum of 30 weeks in New Zealand. Now, whether you are going for the bachelor level, you are going for a master level or PhD level, upon completing your study, you are entitled to the 3 years post-study work visa. And this post-study work visa basically serve as a bridge from your students upon completing your study towards your residency or permanent residency status. These 3 years allow you to have sufficient time to plan, for your PR. Now, of course, we can talk about that shortly. Now, how soon must you apply? So once you have completed your study within 3 months, should you decide that you wanted to stay back in New Zealand, you must submit or apply for the post-study work visa within 3 months. And when you apply for the post-study work visa, you can basically include your family members, your spouse, your children's, and your spouse would be entitled to, an open work visa that comes, under the post-study work visa. Likewise, if your children's wishes to study and at the age of schooling, they would then be entitled, to a student's visa as a domestic students, which allows them to study. Now, when we talk about, this post-study work visa, and we are going to talk about, shortly, what if you are a bachelor degree students, how do you plan towards, securing your PR? We are also going to be looking at, if you are master degree students, then what are the pathway, available for you to secure your PR? Uh, just something to take notes. If you are looking at something below bachelor degree, there will be some new visa options available end of the year. Especially for those who is exploring diploma or certificates in trades, some of the trades profession, there will be, a short-term graduate visa, work visa available, and this is going to be introduced end of the year. Okay, now let's look into, as a student, when you secured, the post-study work visa, and let's have a look at the first option. How do you get the residence visa? We have something called green list. This green list basically representing all the occupation in demand in New Zealand. And if you have completed your study within this field, such as an audit accounting study, and you're going to work as an auditor, or you have completed, a bachelor degree in engineering, for example, healthcare, such as which cover medical practitioner, which covers nurses, ICT, in IT field, and you comes under the tier 1 green list. If you have completed your study in some of the trades qualification, you are, a machinery operator, you are in education professions, for example, and you comes under the tier 2. So these are the occupation that gives you a clear transition into the residence pathway. And next slides, we're going to talk about, other than completing the study, how do you, qualify to apply for the residency status. If your occupation is in the tier 1, for example, all you need to do is to secure a job offer from New Zealand, and with that, you are able to apply for, a residence visa straight away. Yeah. So it is about completing your study, having, your occupations in the green list, secure a job, and apply straight away, for the residency visa. If your occupation is under the tier 2, for example, yeah, so it does require to gather certain years of experience, especially, for example, 24 months. So it is about you completing your study, work in New Zealand within that 3 years, and you must secure a job and work for 22 months. Then with that experience, you would then be able to apply, under the work to residency visa. All right. So this is, this is the pathway for those occupation under the green list. Yeah. We're going to also look into something that is very common and very popular, general skill migration category, in short SMC. This program, now the green, those pathway under the green list doesn't comes with a point system. Yeah, there isn't any point system required. However, when it comes to the skilled migrants category, there is a point system designed for those who are looking at applying. And you can see here, many of you might have thought, hey, the point could be very high and you need to score a high point, for you to apply under the skill migration category. But the reality is, all you need to meet is 6 points. Okay. With these 6 points, again, for those who achieve the 6 point, you apply for the you will receive an invitation and you to apply for the SMC directly. For those who doesn't have 6 points, unfortunately, you won't be getting an invitation. Yeah. So it is no longer how well if you score, whether or not 7 points is better than 6 points, or 8 points is better than 7 points. All you need is a minimum of 6 points under the SMC program. Okay, now how in general, how do you meet the 6 points requirement? Okay, so this is the focus today. Yeah. So we are going to talk about master, degree. Effectively from August this year, in 2 months' time, a new policy will be introduced for those who completed a master degree in New Zealand. Now, you must have a bachelor degree, yeah, in general. But this bachelor degree can be from anywhere. It doesn't necessarily need to be from New Zealand. All right. So it is the master degree that's important, and you are required to complete this master degree in New Zealand. An online study doesn't help and is not recognized. You need to be physically completing, your study in New Zealand. Sorry, your master degree in New Zealand. All right. That is going to be a new policy starting August 2026. And this new policy applies to those who is already in the process of, completing your master degree. So literally anyone who has completed, a New Zealand master degree after August, there is this pathway for you to apply under the SMC, because the master degree itself has, has offered you a complete 6 points required under the SMC. Okay. Now, if you do not do your master degree, then you have only a bachelor degree. This bachelor degree will give you, 3 points, for example. And to make up the additional 3 points, then you need to work, for another 3 years. However, if you obtain, an honors degree, then you're going to work for another 2 years. Yeah. So it is a combination of, a bachelor degree plus the working experience in New Zealand, which then gives you a total 6 points. The point system also does includes if, someone or you are receiving, an income or a wages that's 1.5 times more than the median wages in New Zealand. Yeah. So that these are the components of the point system as compared to Australia, for example. It is a very straightforward point system structure that are being designed for the SMC program. Now, when we talk about this, the highlights for today, when we talk about this New Zealand Master Study, what is important, do take note, it is not just about completing the study. So remember, we spoke about the post-study work visa of 3 years. What you need to do within that 3 years period is to start looking for a job, and if you are being offered a job from an accredited employer. Yeah. So you then, with this job offer and your master degree from New Zealand, that is how, a combination of these two would then allows you to apply for the SMC. So this is important because, so as soon as you secure a job, even you know, without starting your work, without starting working, and you would be able to apply for the SMC. Now, most of the companies are accredited employer, as long as they are legally operating financially, they are in a healthy position, to be able, they able to, to pay the salary to the staff, and they went through the process through the immigration and qualify as an accredited employer. So that is actually very important, for those who are looking at this pathway. All right. Now, of course, on top of that, you and your family members must meet the health check and demonstrating, you are securing the job and you're going to be working full-time. And the job, do take note, the job has to be full-time. Yeah. It could be a contract job. It could be a full-time permanent job. Yeah. But the key here is it has to be a full-time job. All right. So this is the SMC, which is, the program and the pathway for a master degree students, and a very popular and important programs to secure a PR in New Zealand. Now, I'm going to talk about also, a residence visa, because when it comes to New Zealand, right, sometimes you hear about residency status, residence status, you heard about permanent residence status, and what the difference is. Let's look into that, shortly. Now, this is just to summarize, as a bachelor degree students, the pathway for you would be, to complete. If you are, if you are young, you are going to New Zealand, to complete your bachelor degree. So after 3 years, you go into a post-study work visa for 3 years, start, building up your experience for another 3 years, or 2 years if you secured or you have completed your bachelor degree with an honors degree, and to gather the 6 points, then how you are entitled to apply for the SMC. Now, I think something worth highlighting here when it comes to this SMC 6 points, I spoke about, having extra point isn't better than those who have 6 points. Uh, this this relatively, is important because for those who is familiar with the Australia Skill Migration Program, the point system would require you to score a minimum of 65 points. Having said that, 65 point itself would not be sufficient. If you're looking at how competitive it is nowadays, most of the candidates having to score even 90 points or even higher than 90 points to be invited. Whereas when it comes to New Zealand, the point system is designed in a way that if you meet the 6 points, you are in the system. If you don't meet the 6 points, then you won't be invited. Another interesting point about it is there isn't a quota on the skill migration program. Also, there isn't any states in New Zealand that's participating in the program. So in other words, you're not relying on the nomination or the sponsorship from the state's government. The whole entire program is administered under the federal immigration. Yeah. So there isn't competition. You are not relying on whether or not the states require your skill. Yeah, and you do not need to be worried about that. Yeah, when it comes to the New Zealand. If you are a mature students, you who has already gotten a bachelor degree from anywhere, then should you decided to go for the master study, just to recap, after completing your study in a year to two, for example, if you are from the marketing background, you have a bachelor degree in marketing, you can choose to complete your master degree in marketing within a year. And again, you could choose to study in through a university, or you could choose to complete your master degree from the business school or even polytechnics. The school fee is about 25,000 New Zealand dollar if you're going for a business school or the polytechnic. If it is a university level, then the school fee would be about 35,000 New Zealand dollar. Yeah. So the way I look at it is this master degree, this new policy is a window of opportunity. Question is, how long is this going to stay? In my opinion, when there is a good programs like this, probably it doesn't last, over an extended period of times. But having said that, I don't think it will go away, in a year or two. When I say extended period of time, I don't think this is going to last for another 5 years to 10 years. Most likely, the New Zealand government would review the needs and the circumstances and make the changes and to decide whether or not there should be some policy, replacing, the programs that are available at the moment. Yeah. So if let's talk about study programs, I mean master study program. So I spoke about you can complete it within 1 year. For example, if you have a bachelor degree in IT and you wanted to go into another specialization, probably you need to complete your master degree in a year and a half, for example. Yeah. So do assess your priority, speak to us, and we will advise you, on what to consider. Yeah, when you plan, towards your study. So again, these 3 years of study. So sorry, these 3 years of post-study work visa, because these 3 years of post-study work visa is very important in the way that to secure this post-study work visa, you do not even need to have a job offer. Yeah, you do need to have a job offer to apply, for a residence visa. However, this post-study work visa is automatically entitled to you should you complete, your study for a minimum of 30 weeks in New Zealand. Yeah. Now, that is important because it gives you, a lengthy times, 36 months. Again, a good comparison to Australia. If you are 35 or below, and you have and you're entitled to, a post-study, I mean, a graduate visa in New Zealand, that graduate visa for Australia is only 24 months instead of 36 months, like what the New Zealand government is offering. All right. From there, you meet the 6 points by virtue of completing, your master degree, secure a job offer, then, apply for your student's visa, apply for your residence visa through SMC. Now, again, New Zealand migration program is a lot friendlier especially when it comes to including, your dependent child. Do take notes, you can actually include your children up to 23 years old. Yeah. So this is relatively, sorry, until 24 years old. So this is relatively a lot, a lot more friendlier compared to many other programs. US, for example, is capped at 21. Australia is capped at below 23. Uh, New Zealand, on the other hand, is up to 24 years old. Okay, now this is the pathway. So just to summarize, when you go, under the international students visa for your master degree study, yeah, and your spouse, do entitled to something called a partner of a student work visa. With this partner of student work visa, the duration of this visa follows the duration of your student's visa. While we are studying, this visa gives your partners the rights to work full-time in New Zealand, whereas your child comes under, a dependent child student's visa. So while holding this visa status, your child is considered as, a local student paying a domestic student's fee if they are at the primary level or on the secondary school level. And I don't see any other programs in the world that offer, an education benefits even before you secure, the PR status. All right. So, that, we can see, how New Zealand government is actually very friendly towards the international students. Yeah. Uh, and that explain. All right. So after completed your study, in a year or a year and a half, then, again, just to reinstate what I've explained earlier, you go into, the post-study work visa. When you go into the post-study work visa, your family continues on the partner and the child visa, right? And as soon as you secure a job from an accredited employer, then your whole family apply for a residence visa through the SMC program. All right. Now, talking about residence visa and permanent residence visa in New Zealand, the residence visa is basically the first steps towards the permanent residency visa. And as compared to Australia, this residence visa in New Zealand is as good as a permanent residence visa for Australia. So as a residence visa holder in New Zealand, basically it's the first steps. Usually it comes in 24 months. Yeah, and you during these 24 months, you do have the access to the full education benefits, which includes the university level. Uh, it includes Medicare and all the social welfare that are entitled to a New Zealand citizen. In these 2 years' time, there are certain requirements for you to get into the permanent residency visa or permanent residency status. One of those requirements is to fulfill 6 months stay in a year within the 2 years. If you fail to spend 6 months in a year within the 2 years, then you can consider investing 1 million New Zealand in any, investment products, such as if you are, keeping, well, of course, that doesn't extend it, to fixed deposit, because fixed deposit, doesn't carry the investment components. You can consider investing into the government bond, for example. You can consider investing into the commercial property, for example. You can buy share. You can buy, private equities, for example. Yeah. So that, of course, if you do not fulfill the 6 month stay, if you fulfill the 6 month stay, there isn't any investment required. All right. So there are a couple of way for you to actually, meet the transition from residence visa into the permanent residence visa. Once you have gone through the 24 months, you and your family get into the permanent residency status in New Zealand, then there isn't any stay requirements anymore. So when the moment you obtain the permanent residency status, this permanent residency status is being maintained, is given to you throughout your lifetime, whether you're living, continue to live in New Zealand, or you're leaving New Zealand to somewhere else, you are not risking your PR status to be taken away. Yeah, again, this is actually very interesting. Uh, Many other PR status from other countries do require to meet certain requirements and renew every certain periods of times. Whereas for New Zealand, the PR is for life. Okay. So I have highlighted here, there isn't any ongoing presence required for you and your family members. All right. Now, uh, yeah. So, this is a quick sharing about the focus today is, on how, being a student in New Zealand, and how do you plan towards the PR. I do understand, everyone's circumstances are different. If you are, if you are young, you are planning for the bachelor degree, your circumstances could have been different than someone, a mature student who plan to go for a master degree study. So we do encourage you to contact us, speak to us, let us give you our opinion. What would be the best pathway forwards? Uh, and I hope today's section give you some idea, and that helps towards planning for your future and secure your PR in New Zealand. So do take down our contact detail. You can reach us through the phone and WhatsApp. For those who wanted to stay updated with the immigration updates and all the changes, do scan the barcode here, and that brings you to all the media, updates on the latest immigrations changes. All right. And I thank you, for listening to me. And I hope you like this session. And I look forward to speak to you further if you need us to guide you through on the best pathway forwards. All right. Thank you, and talk to you again soon. Bye bye.